We are guided by the Zimbabwe Constitution. We had a referendum on that issue, and the people of Zimbabwe pronounced themselves on that. So we abide by what the people pronounce, or Zimbabwe pronounced in the Constitution. Look, I may have my views about certain things, but if the Constitution says this is the way to go, I fold myself, I wrap myself in the flag of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I hope it answers your question. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your... I still am not going to buy chicken these days because I don't want to be said to be Tengama journalist. But you have a big party once all the noise is off.
We would like through you to invite them.
Good morning. Are you ready? Is everyone ready? Okay.
But that does not exist in the CCC and MDC manuals. They don't care about business people, because vanofambira chimwe chete seambulance, we are there to go to State House. And if Chamisa is not in State House, therefore the mission is not complete. But you have been given a mandate here, run a town. Can you try to run the town properly so that people can see that you are competent? Use the town as a center of excellence so that people can judge you. Kuti unoenda ku State House. So these are the challenges which we have with CCC. But look, we know we are coming from an era where sanctions ravaged urban areas. We know the pain of sanctions on the urban population. So we are not taking that challenge of urban areas lightly. That's why we worked so hard to make sure that the rural vote, we keep holding on to it. Because that's where ZANU-PF fought the war from. They have got a big affinity to the revolutionary traditions of ZANU-PF. And that's why we also spend a lot of time trying to make sure that that constituency is happy. We will promise you to do more for rural constituencies because we want to keep holding on to that vote. But we want to make inroads into the urban vote. But let me assure you, we work hard because we never take it for granted that we have a right to rule as a party. We have to contest for that X which a Zimbabwean voter gives in a vote, in a booth. Anoita that vote, Ariwe Gambut booth. It's a lone decision by a Zimbabwean voter inside a booth. That's what we target, and we take it seriously. And that's why we respect the opposition. And when they do perform to the point where they get 44% of the vote, we say, well done. That's Zimbabwean democracy at work. That's what the people of Zimbabwe want. And we have to live with what the people of Zimbabwe want, because we champion ourselves as the party which brought democracy to Zimbabwe, and we have to live by the democratic aspirations which we fought for and which were the incubation of what Zimbabwe is today through the elections of 1980. I hope it answers your question. We never, never, never dismiss our opposition. So that's why we work hard to make sure that we keep the attention of the voter. We don't sometimes do it well. We make mistakes. We still feel that we are falling short in urban areas. But like I told you, we feel that our message of hope is starting to permeate. And when we win, what I said is the bellwether urban seat of this country. Don't take lightly what Mbare says, because that's where every nationalist from the 1960s came from. Mbare is also where the most intrepid of the guerrilla forces in the 1970s came from. The most daring ones, they came from Bari. Ndo vakapisa matengi in 1978. They came from Bari. They changed the quality of Zanla forces and Zipra forces. It was a qualitative leap because of the arrival of the urban youths and Bari being epitomized, being the epitome. So we are happy about Bari and we are going to work on that. We will transform Bari. This, rest assured, Mbari will never be the same in the next 24 to 36 months. And I'm talking like that because I've been a major driver of investments in this country. You read the Sunday Times, the Sunday Mail today. In December, we will start producing steel, Kumaniz. This is big. I've been a prime mover of that project since 2013. I come from Bari anyway. So I'm telling you, we are going to transform Bari. Watch it. And the ideas are fully there. We will grow the Mbari paradigm and make it permeate to all the urban centers. And I'm saying it publicly so that the CCC are aware that we are going for them in urban areas. Watch out. And we are competent and we have the record and we have the connections, the global connections to do it because we bring some of the best investors into the country. Because that's what changes a town. The biggest investors in a town. And we've got a competent population, an organized population, a well-educated population. We will get them the capital which is commensurate to their capabilities, to their high human resource index. This is the task of the Second Republic after this election. Muchaona, and I promise you, Mozoni Moresa, in the next 24 to 36 months, we are going to do it. President Mnangagwa is determined, fully focused on a massive urban renewal and an infrastructure drive of this country never seen by Africa. And it's going to happen. Thank you. Lady President.
My name is Mary Mundia. I'm from RT. My question to the ambassador is in regards to how ZANU-PF went to the polls without a manifesto for the first time since 1980. My understanding is that it's a booklet or it's a measure that's put in place that enables us to trace what is the electorate and be able to assess what it is that you would have done and what you'll be able to do by the time your term comes to pass. What led to this and how are we going to hold you accountable as a ruling party? In this case, His Excellency was the president.
Look, we have had manifestos, flowery manifestos. Remember there was a document called Zim Asset from Jonathan Moyo and the others. I am a student of finance from New York, and I've seen capital make changes in countries like China. I've seen goods being traded in Brussels. I looked at that document, Zim Asset. I dismissed it completely. Nothing but flowery language. It had nothing tangible to offer to the people of Zimbabwe. So you raise hope by a document which is hollow. Then you want again to go into the election in a similar vein by writing a manifesto. But once bitten, twice shy. We were very careful this time that maybe we have done a lot on the ground. Why not have a compendium of what we've been achieving on the ground in various districts, in various provinces, in various cities, and tell people this is what we are doing so that people can attach your achievements to concrete projects. This is what we are. We may eventually get back to manifestos after we have rebuilt the confidence of the people in trusting a political document. If you put a political document in it, then you don't deliver. Next time the electorate will hold you onto it. So this time we're much more focused on highlighting our achievements on the ground. We have a fast-growing economy in Africa. We have stabilized our currency. By the way, something which you continue to miss, there was a very bad miscalculation on the part of the CCC. It relied on the perennial attack of the Zimbabwe dollar on the eve of the elections because of the predatory nature of the American dollar. That's what they were hoping for. They had hoped that there would be hyperinflation on a grand scale in the country and shake the confidence of the electorate, because the dollar would have lost its buying power as people were going into the polling booths. This time, we went into the polling booth with the dollar strengthening. Again, courtesy to the concrete economic initiatives of the Second Republican President, E.D. Mnangagwa. When he goes to Gweru, to the miners, and salutes him, those SME miners, he is paying homage to the people who saved the Zimbabwe dollar, those young miners, the SMEs. Because we are now exporting $2 to $3 billion of gold, even 3 times higher than tobacco. These are the things, our US dollars in this country, most US dollars in the world, for your own information, I'm from finance, they are sent by a plane from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York to a country. Zimbabwe's US dollars are not sent by an American federal government plane. They are sent to Dubai on the global market, and Zimbabwe sends gold to Dubai and buys the US dollars. That's why the dollars are new. On a good day, if you touch one, it can burn you, because it is coming hot from the printing press in New York. It has been earned by Zimbabwean young miners digging gold Kumakaha, Kugwanda, Kuchakari, Kumpenalonga, Kukwekwe. Those are the people who are earning the US dollars. That's how we avoided the inflationary specter, which normally haunts the Zimbabwe dollar as we go to the elections. And once that equation was out, there was no opposition. Because for the ACCC, they sit back and the economy ichapedza ZANU-PF. Dollar ichapedza ZANU-PF. This time, the dollar was on the side of voting for ZANU-PF. Because it was strengthening as we were going to the elections. You got to take cognizance of some of these issues. That there is a cleverness, there is an astuteness in what the president is doing to this country. And the performance of the Zimbabwe dollar actually punched a hole into the balloon of the CCC, because they were relying that America would run down the Zimbabwe dollar as we go to the elections. Now we don't care about what America says with the dollar, because our dollar is earned, the US dollar is earned. And we believe that gold is better money than the US dollar. And we are going to put more money in digging gold. I reminded you the other day, countries earn hard currency by exports. We do that with tobacco, we do that with lithium. Remember, we are now going to be exporting lithium big. We are having lithium concentrates come in thousands of tons, coming from the plant in Budorowa, the new one from the Chinese billionaire company, is coming on board to join the one at Arcadia, Gormont. We have another one at Bikita. We have another one coming up in Vanda, lithium. And lithium is gold. Ask Elon Musk. Lithium is gold, white gold. So these are going to be earning money on a scale. We no longer are buffeted by the whimsical tendencies of the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, because we are taking refuge in the armor of the Zimbabwe gold as the currency. This is what is rankling America. That's why the frenetic effort by America to say CCC must come into power, because we want to make sure that Zimbabwe does not go the way of the Zimbabwe of the gold standard. This is what is rankling America about ZANU-PF. That we are one of the countries which has escaped the clutch hold of America by using the dollar. We dig money in Zimbabwe. So these are things which are going to be the foundation of the prosperity which we are going to give to people of Zimbabwe. This will lead to urban prosperity. So I want to tell you, we are much more concerned with the deliverables. We will go back to the manifesto once our people have gotten used to the idea that a paper reflects what happens on the ground. But if a written paper does not reflect what is on the ground, there's no point in trying to use a manifesto. And I've given you that stupid document which was called Zim Asset, which was so hollow, it delivered nothing. I looked at it in cabinet That's why I broke ranks with Mugabe and Jonathan Moyo and all the others. I'm a finance man. I read through it and I saw nonsense. I saw metaphysics in that document, nothing concrete. So we are not going back to metaphysics. The manifestos which are written for the sake of the document, no. Concrete deliverables. And that's what the president campaigned on. I hope it answers. Sometimes I'm long-winded, but it doesn't matter. If I'm too long, please, director, watch the faces, and then you can call me to order. Thank you. Please come.
My name is Peter Kuel Natemso. So my question is, are you not embarrassed to claim victory in an election which has been called a shame by the majority of election observers, including SADC?
Look, I don't think that the observers have called. There are preliminary reports. They pointed to some aspects of the election. And I want to remind you that even in the SADC report, they said if there are issues, people must go to the courts to redress. So don't try to throw the baby away with the bathwater. You understand? Don't try to throw the baby. They said if there are issues which arise out of this election, the contestants must go to the avenues of redress under the Zimbabwe Constitution. That is the pith essence of the SADC document. We did take issue with some of the tendency aspects as a party, but that was because we felt that they were trying to become a foundation of contestation before the result has been announced. And we had to stop Zestin and the others trying to do a parallel announcement because there were peace, law and order aspects about those reports coming out at that stage. But now that the result is out, we are fine with that report. In any case, it will go to the SADC heads of state. They will come and they will consider it because we are members of SADC. We will be there. We want our democracy to be tweaked. We have no quarrel with that. So please, we don't dwell on the negatives. We don't look at the rear review mirror. We look through the windshield. We look through to the future. So we are okay. I'm sure SADC has the goodwill to make Zimbabwe succeed. SADC has never acted with Zimbabwe in bad faith. So we remain faithful, true and faithful to our institution, which we willfully acceded to as Zimbabwe. We're not forced to join SADC. We willfully acceded to it, and we will abide by what comes from SADC because we know that it's an institution of bad faith. We don't have sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by SADC. So why should we be against our own institution? We are happy. I hope it answers you. Did I leave a gap? Thank you. I try to be as satisfactory as can be. Thank you. Please come. Yeah. Yes. Look, the people of Zimbabwe voted. The political leaders can look at their vote and decide according to this dispensation of the voter how they want to proceed. If there is a will by the political leaders and political parties for the path which you suggest, so be it. If there is no will for it, I emphasize again, we have absolute majority and we have the president. We can always govern. We have the constitutional mandate to govern as a single party. There can also be options where there's an official opposition in parliament. So the voter has decided, please exercise the options of decision-making as political leaders in line with the decision of the voters. And the voters want progress in the country. So if you go in an open manner to say we want to deliver voters to deliver prosperity, hope and prosperity to the voters, all the options are open. This is what is what is available to the political leaders of all parties. But remember, it takes two to tango. We need goodwill from all sides, from both sides and from all sides. So if we've got goodwill from both sides and good, no, I'm sure an optimal way can always be found, not necessarily the one which you suggest. It could be any other. Zimbabweans are very creative. I was telling you the other day that we have given templates even in diplomas of how to solve issues. Whoever thought we could join 3 armies into one and make them one? Whoever thought a guerrilla army would become a democratic party through elections? So we are very creative people in Zimbabwe. We can do things which the world, we can surprise the world. I hope that we still have that oomph to surprise the world. But like I say, it takes two to tango. And it requires wisdom, it requires maturity, and it requires respect for the voter, because what the voter ultimately wants when he goes into a booth, when you see people waiting 2 days to vote, is because they are seeing hope in an X. Why do you want to disappoint that hope in an X? Give substance to that hope. So I'm not the ultimate arbiter of the decision-making of the two parties. I can only speculate. Yeah. But it's not a bad idea to find each other, one way or the other. It's good for the electorate, it's good for Zimbabwe, it's good for SADC, it's good for Africa. Thank you. Any other question? A new one, yes.
Yeah, question from a freelance journalist. May I briefly put you into the opposition's shoes?
Yes.
What would be your comment on the complaint that the ballot papers are brought to Zumba and Mbere were first before they could reach to other polling stations in Harare and Bulawayo in particular, and these are well-known opposition strongholds, with ZEC saying this was caused by the court challenges?
You see, ZEC is the arbiter, and I don't want ZANU-PF to take over the role of ZEC. With the given explanation, I honestly believe they were trying to be a fair referee. And definitely there were court challenges. And the court challenges, most of them came from the opposition. They took advantage of the electoral law and the advent of the electoral courts to go to the opposition. But there's a stipulated time frame between the proclamation and the day of the elections. So each day you take away from gravitating towards the election, the proclamation date, it means that you also squeeze the time frames for which a ZEC must operate. But there's more certainty about the candidates in Uzumba, Maramba, Pfumba, because nobody is in court there. You understand? Nobody is contesting in those constituencies. But people are contesting in Bulawayo and people are contesting in Harare. So the raw material which ZEC wants, which is the ballot, the name of a ballot paper, is delayed by the courts, because you cannot force the courts to do what you want as ZEC. You are only ZEC is an administrative court. It is subordinate to the legal system of this country, which is the High Court. So I understand the plight of ZEC, and I understand, but sometimes you only lift a big stone and drop it on your feet. By spending most of the time in the courts, then they have created the conditions where the ballots would be delayed. And look, this is a party which was favored by ZEC at each and every turn. I was in Chinhoyi. We had finished everything as ZANU-PF by 11 on the last day of registration of voters, of candidates. In Chinhoyi, by 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, ZANU-PF, everything was perfect, paid Chichi Tadayo. MDC was running around, Triple C was running around looking for money. And then the ZEC had to extend through midnight, which is against the law. If we weren't just to play by the rules, ZANU-PF would have taken them to the court, to the cleaners, and said disqualified. But what is the worst sin? The worst sin is to stop people from putting an X in a box. That's a more grievous sin than the discretion of saying extend the time. So you now they extend the time to accommodate you, and you add more seats to your winning pallet, to your winning plate in Bulawayo and everywhere, and you still complain. I'm not the beneficiaries of the extension of time was Triple C. We are the ones who suffered. Who they said, "Vanonoka, picture aridzo. Game rata, the referee takati 12 o'clock is the starting time. They are coming here 2 o'clock. The match is over." But you know, you don't want to deny the spectators the prospect of a match. So it's a good thing. The spectators got their match. I don't know whether you are seeing my analogy. Thank you. Last question.
I'm sorry, Ambassador Mtambo, for asking a second question, just because everybody's trying to time. Some of the observer missions noted the inclusion of minority rights, in this case the LGBTQI community in Zimbabwe, in particular the European Union. And Minister Ziyambi gave us the government's position as far as that is concerned. What's your party's position as far as the inclusion of LGBTQI plus?
Oh, okay.
Label. Did you say label?
Label, okay.
So it's okay like this. Just two.
No free advertising.
Is everyone ready now? Okay.
The Paranguri.
We're all ready now. Good morning and thank you all for coming to our press conference for today. Allow me to introduce you to our Secretary for Information and Publicity for ZANU-PF, Comrade Chris Mchangwa. He will be addressing you today on several matters of interest to the party. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Director. And through you, at short notice, I want to thank members of the Fourth Estate, the press which is here, the local Zimbabwean coverage, as well as the various international correspondents who are here. It's always an honor to have events such as elections in your country, which are seminal events in the political affairs of a state and a nation, to be covered by both the local and the international press. It's an expression of the interest which we have in my country. It means that Zimbabwe matters to you, and we are very happy about that. We don't take it lightly that you are coming to cover our press conference as Zimbabwe, but even more important, as ZANU-PF. I will start by the obvious thing, which is to congratulate our president for retaining the presidency of the Republic of Zimbabwe under the auspices of the Second Republic, which came about in 2017. He ran an arduous campaign. It was taxing to him. He really took it like it would be a do-or-die campaign. He went all over the country, and the reward is there. He has improved upon his showing from what he did in 2018. He has marginally improved, which means that his message got through. It was never going to be easy for ZANU-PF to try to win the confidence of the voter again after the decay and morass which marked the last 2 decades of the First Republic. We were on a downslide. There was obvious gloating and glee by those who don't want to make Zimbabwe win, those who don't want the Zimbabwe revolution to succeed, and those who were advocating for regime change and championing regime change. There was obvious glee at the way things were going in the First Republic, a self-fulfilling prophecy that the revolution will fail. Comrade Emerson Damzo Mnangagwa came to the rescue with the Second Republic, and he has been taking the country uphill. And it's good that there is a new confidence which is beginning to be instilled among Zimbabweans by what the president has been doing. And that is reflected in the increased voter margin which he had this time from the previous one. And it also is reflected in the lower vote margin, which has gone to his main opposition. And we hail the main opposition, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, for a good show. He didn't make it, but it was a good show. It shows that Zimbabweans are democratic. I also want to salute the other candidates who were the presidential candidates for their interests, even though their performance may have been lackluster, but they liked their country and they participated, and it is a good thing. So we salute all the candidates, and we also want to salute ZANU-PF, the party which won. It won absolute majority, which we need. We don't need anything other than absolute majority, because that's how you rule a country. Only on extraordinary things do you need a two-thirds majority. But we have a young constitution. 2013, it's under test. And we are generally reticent about introducing too many changes to that constitution, considering the way it came about, which was a national consensus and a national referendum. So we don't expect many challenging issues in terms of the constitution of Zimbabwe. So for governance, day-to-day governance, absolute majority is enough. And that's exactly what we will be gunning for, day-to-day governance of Zimbabwe. And to continue with the economic agenda, which the president has taken to this country too. We are very confident that we will continue to be attracting investment under the banner Zimbabwe is open for business. We will also continue to reach out to investors, to other countries, enhancing relationships with traditional investors of the Second Republic, associated with the BRICS, most of them. But we continue to profile our hand to new investors, particularly from the EU and from America. We want them. Whereas we value our burgeoning relationship with the BRICS countries, we are still very cognizant of the fact that the EU and the West has got the deepest pool of capital and the most tried and tested technologies and management expertise. So, anything which can make us be attractive to investments from those countries, we will avidly and ardently reach out to them, particularly after this election. We want to salute ZEC. They did a sterling job under difficult circumstances. We had the introduction of the Electoral Court, which is something which had not been there before. In an effort to make sure that any pebbles which may be standing in the way of expression of democracy by the people of Zimbabwe and also the integrity of the candidates remains intact. There was this recourse to the fast-track electoral courts. It is a new invention of our legal system. In a quest to make sure that we are seen to be democratic. It has its positive aspects, where there was an expression of the various wills of the candidates, through contestation, and judgments were rendered. But in the end, it also had the effect of retarding the publication of ballot papers by ZEC, because they were waiting for the source material of a ballot paper, which is the candidates, and they had to come out of the courts. They couldn't go ahead of the courts. So here is a democratic system of the separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive, and the assembly at work. And one arm obviously has an effect on another, and that affected ZEC. So we understand the stress under which they had to work, but in the event, it was good. They still managed to make everybody vote as was required. They even extended the vote. For those who are having misgivings about that, it turns out that in areas where the vote was extended, that's where precisely the opposition did well. So you can see, that there was no bad intention on the part of ZEC in extending the vote. If anything, maybe if we were mean on the side of ZANU-PF, we would be the one who would say, why did you extend the vote? Because it made the other side gain more seats. So we are, in a way, are the ones who were the receiving end. But what were we on the receiving end of? The expression of the people of Zimbabwe through a vote. That's the ultimate expression of decision-making by a sovereign nation, by an independent person, that he puts an X. Any other way would have trampled that right of an individual to put an X. So even if we say the rules should have been followed to the letter and spirit, we still defer to the fact that people actually eventually put an X and chose their candidate whom they wanted. And in the process, the opposition increased their seats. You saw in Bulawayo was actually the victim. And, if there was any benefit to ZANU-PF, maybe it was in Manicaland. But there were 2 seats, 2 districts, not even 2 seats. So the beneficiaries of the extension by ZEC are more to do with the opposition than ZANU-PF. Why would they want now to complain about a system which made them win more seats? That's being churlish on the part of the opposition, to say the minimum. We also are happy with the presidential candidates and the various candidates who signed their names on the V11s in various polling stations. It was a good thing to say we accept the result. And it made it very easy for people to accept the legitimacy of the vote because they were endorsed at the voting booths by the various candidates. We wish that that spirit would have persisted last night with the presidential candidate, but we are disappointed that there seem to be misgivings about appending the signature to the V11 of the ultimate vote of the presidents. We really think that if people go into an election with the idea that if I don't win, therefore the result is not right, it's not a good idea because you are usurping the decision of the people who are making decisions, who are putting their axes inside the booth. You come there with a predetermined position that is, if they go into a booth, they must vote for me. And then when the results come and some of the votes are not for you, then you say, I can't accept. It's not right. It's not a proper, you don't go into a match on the idea that if I don't win, therefore the match is null and void. It's not a good idea. It doesn't augur well for African politics. This is not good for democracy. People should accept. But that as it may, we take comfort in that we have legal systems which are in place and which are a recourse for any people who may have misgivings about how the process has happened. We as ZANU-PF, we have no quarrel with the system. We are happy with the system. We may have gripes, but we keep them here and there because we look at the overall good and overall image of the country. So we may have our gripes, but we look at the general good of Zimbabwe. We hope that the same attitude can be exhibited by the other side, that they use the systems which are in place. The constitution, which was a well-written constitution, covers almost every ambit, every dimension under which conflict resolution may be pursued in the event that people feel aggrieved. So if people feel aggrieved and they resort to the Constitution of Zimbabwe as a source of remedy for their gripes and grievances. It's a good thing. Actually, we in ZANU-PF are happy about that because I come from the field of finance. Once in a while, the central banks of the world, they do what are called stress tests of their banks to see how strong they are. These are stress tests. If people go to the courts and use the system to address whatever may be grievances, it's a stress test for democracy. It means judgments will be made, and out of those judgments, we improve and tweak our democracy. So it's a right and proper thing for people to go to the courts, and even in the SADC observer team's observations, they highlighted the fact that if people have got grievances, they should use the courts of Zimbabwe to go and settle, to go and seek redress for those grievances. That's a very positive view from the SADC observer mission. We have no quarrel with the other parties going. I'm sure there may also even be people from ZANU-PF who feel aggrieved at candidate level. It's their constitutional right if they go to the courts. It only makes our democracy stronger, because the more judgments are made about our democratic practices and they are put on record, the more perfect we become as a democracy. So the courts are there to make sure that the route to a more perfect democracy is achievable, is attainable. So we have no quarrel. What would, of course, be wrong is to go the Trump way, where you then say, I want to redress a situation by an insurrection or by violence. That, of course, would not be right, because you are now trying to go against the Constitution, and one can see what it has landed Trump in. He's got a mugshot, a former president now, being tried under the insurrection laws of America. So I think, I'm a student of American politics. I did all my degrees in America. That's why I qualified. I understand exactly why the American system is going that way about Trump. We hope that it also becomes an example for Zimbabwean politicians that, let's not test the Constitution by trying to go out of it. Let's test the Constitution by going through it to seek redress. So we hope it keeps that way with the opposition. If they go to the courts, it's their rights, and the judges have got a right to adjudicate. And we will, as ZANU-PF, as much as it may be painful or otherwise, we will always try to abide by the rulings of the courts. So it's a proper field, and it's a fair field. We are happy with the report which is coming from some of the observer missions. The Palestinian one, of course, they've always been our traditional allies. But there's a particular one from the Indian observer team. Everybody knows that India is the largest democracy in the world. 1.2 billion of them, they go through the vote. They had very positive observations about how Zimbabwe conducted its elections. I've been a diplomat within the UN system. If you want a lodestar of what is generally diplomatically right and morally correct in international discourse, in any particular conflict, you usually will not go wrong by reading what the Indian diplomat has said. They are fair, they are mature, they are responsible, and we want to learn from them. And when they make remarks, we take them seriously. And we take their report, and we hope that whatever positives, negatives they may have had, we will strive to become a better democracy. I think there are other reports which are in a similar vein. The EU, the Americans. No, you can't wish them away. They are part of the global village, but sometimes the way they want to involve themselves in African affairs, it harks back to post-colonial psychosis, post-imperial angst that in Africa, which used to be our prey ground, our plunder ground, is suddenly out of their reach. So the temptation for them is to always go overboard. And this is a region which colonized Africa. This is a region which enslaved Africa. This is a region which plundered African resources. This is a region which has placed every impediment it can to block Africa from being modern. That is the EU. And it is a reason which is being forced to revise its attitude towards Africa, simply because China, India, and other global south countries have become strong and are competing with them. You know, they never used to entertain even a black head of state in America. You would go and meet an undersecretary if you're an African head of state on a state visit to Washington. Last year, America had its second China-America summit in history. Yeah, I mean, not China, America-Africa summit in history. It's second. China has been doing this since 2000. So everybody now takes the cue from China. Every major power in the world now wants to have a summit with Africa. America never used to do that. Why? Because China has come on board. So you see, the mere fact that they are now learning from latecomers, it shows that they've got a way of dealing with Africa which is full of prejudice. And they couldn't do these things on their own volition in the past, but they are now being forced to. So they've got a sulking and a begrudging attitude about Africa taking its rightful place in global affairs. I mean, they love wars in Europe. Look at what they are doing now. They've plunged the war, and every day we are always teetering on the abyss of a nuclear war. They want their fashionable game, which is wars in Europe. First World War, Second World War, 1870 war. So this is, and the American force is a transplant of Europe. So by extension, we are dealing with the same people. You know, they love wars. You see, there's only one American president who left office without declaring a war. It is Trump. Every other president, American president, wants to feel that we are macho. They must declare a war. Now, when people with such a kind of history begin to judge African elections, you are tempted to say, you've got logs in your eyes, but you want to point specks in other people's. We have been peaceful. We have not fought against anybody. We are right in our own borders. They are busy, killing each other in the fields of Ukraine. But they've got the spare time to continue to pontificate as if they are the most righteous people. They sit on a pedestal teaching about democracy, about the human rights, about this. But look, charity begins at home in Europe. Charity begins at home. Stop the wars in Ukraine. And then, because you've got bigger responsibilities to humanity by your willful pursuit of war to resolve issues. When the ballot box in Zimbabwe should be the one which resolves the issues. Like that's what we are doing. So with Europe, their comments always come with, we bleed about some of the comments which they make, because there's a self-righteousness about people who are about a continent which tend to be the most profane in terms of the conduct of global affairs. That is Europe. So we're not surprised by the utterances which came from the delegation of the Europe. But look, if there are positives which are there, I again say we take a cafeteria approach. Those things which are good we will take. Those which are not, which impinge on our sovereignty, we will dismiss. Because after all, we know we've been under their sanctions. We know America has got Zidera. We know America has got a preference for if they are the ones who say, unless our candidate makes it, we will not acknowledge the result which Zimbabwe will give. I've got here a newspaper which is normally associated with the opposition. This is an edition of Newsday, and I will wave it all to you. This is Only last month. Today is the 24th of July, of 25th,
Today's the 27th.
20,
27th.
27th. This is 24th of July, exactly a month ago. You see, this the ED has no room for rigging. This is Chamisa. He had absolute confidence in the integrity of the electoral systems in Zimbabwe, because his vigilance, and the vigilance of his party, had given him the confidence that things were going to go right, and decided. So today, he is refusing to append his signature to the same system which he was loading so much on the 24th. The reason is this. Now, what do we say of a person like that? We can't do. Are we wrong to conclude that you are a Sarok loser? Losing is a painful thing, but you've got to be man enough or woman enough to accept that sometimes things don't go the way you want. We in ZANU-PF, because we're a post-revolutionary movement, we know the pain of losing. And our pain of losing is battlefield losses. You were 12 in a section. There is a contact with the White Rhodesian Army. 12 people out of that 8, you live on the battlefield. You go and report to headquarters that we were 12, 8, and are unaccounted for. Worse, because you are afraid that the quick reaction helicopter will be hovering over your head. You don't even take the bodies of the people, the 12. You are running away, leaving your comrades. So we know nobody knows the searing pain of loss better than ZANU-PF. Because that's what we went through as Zipra and Zanla in our young days. But you got to be able to say, I must survive and proceed with the task at hand, notwithstanding the pain. But it looks like for Chamisa and his party, they cannot accept the loss without lending an element of bad faith to it. Each time you lose, you lend bad faith. We said we lose, we improve upon our metro, we improve upon our strategy, we improve upon our tactics, so that tomorrow maybe we don't lose 8, we lose 3. Until eventually we're saying maybe we keep 12 and we inflict loss on the other side. Then you are on top. Because that's what the lesson you should do, to say you learn from loss to improve upon yourself. But if you have got bad faith every time you lose, it's very difficult to learn. Because the burden of bad faith makes you always look through the rear review mirror. You never face the windscreen again to see what is in front. So we hope we are not going to be, as the challenge of developing the country beckons, we hope we are not going to be constantly be made to look through the rear review mirror and settle on this election as if it is the only thing which matters to Zimbabwe. What matters to Zimbabwe is to make the country forward and give the people a chance for a better life. That's what matters. And you do it by having goodwill about and creating hope. And this is precisely what the president has been doing, creating hope. And the signs are there. There are 2 bellwether constituencies. There's a bellwether constituency in Zimbabwe for the past 60, 70 years of African nationalism. It starts in Mbare. All the politics which have made this country be what it is today starts from Mbare. Because Mbare was the modern colonial township which developed quickly to adopt African nationalism, taking advantage of the advent of capital and labor and industrialization. So African nationalism is born in Mbare, in this country. And it's maybe an indicator of the way things are now going in urban areas that ZANU-PF snatched Mbare. It's only a matter of time before the other townships follow what Mbare does, because it is the bellwether township of politics in Zimbabwe. And we want to congratulate the people of Mbare for embracing ZANU-PF in an urban area. I went to campaign there. That's where I was born. So I know, and I know I know what the young people of Mbare did in the war. When they joined in big numbers in 75, the war changed. We could even attack tanks in Harare using young people who came from Mbare. It couldn't be done by people who came from rural areas. So I want to say to the MDC, this perception that the urban areas are ours, we are going to be contesting it very heavily. And what has happened in Mbare is a shot in the arm of the urban renewal agenda, which is going to be the centerpiece of ZANU-PF political programs henceforth. We believe what we have done in rural areas to give hope, we are going to do the same to give urban areas even more hope. So we'll build upon that and let the MDC CCC Chamisa outfit be warned. We will be working very hard for the urban vote as we proceed. And come 28, if they continue to look at the rear review mirror, whilst we are looking through the windscreen of what is going on in the future, they only have themselves to blame if we thump them in urban areas in 2028, because that's what we are gunning for. We are looking firmly into the future, and we would encourage them to look firmly into the future so that they try to retain the vote. We have no quarrel with the idea of a constitutional democracy. It's their right. It's in the constitution for them to exist as a party. What we also are very conscious as ZANU-PF is that we don't think we have a right to rule the people of Zimbabwe. We don't have a right. We have to constantly contest for the allegiance of the people of Zimbabwe to get the vote, which we do. We take seriously the voter. We don't take the X which we get in a booth lightly, or we don't take it for granted. So we are going to work very hard. The same way we worked very hard to organize people to overcome a colonial racist army is the same way we are going to arduously work to make sure that we win back the urban vote. So be warned, CCC. Don't waste your time looking into the rear review mirror, and don't waste your time looking at foreign countries to come and say they will do this for us. They are too busy with their problems now. For you to think that, if all the help which America had given them, he had made urban areas prosperous in the last 2 decades, CCC would be unassailable because urban areas would be so prosperous. And people would be voting for out of prosperity, and they would be saying to ZANU-PF, why do we want you? Because we are prospering in urban areas. But very soon it is going to change the way Mbare has gone. I'm also happy. Another constituency, rural constituency, which was the first to go to the CCC, it's Mondoro Mbaera. I come from there. Mondoro Mbaera, for the first time since 2002, it voted overwhelmingly for the president. He won 13,000 votes in Mondoro, and Chamisa won 8,000 in Mondoro Mbaera. This is the first rural constituency which went against ZANU-PF because of the decay and morass associated with Mugabe's Second Republic. It has come back. These are pointers of where we are going as where the politics of this country is going. So I want to end up by saying we are happy with the outcome of the elections. We want to congratulate President Mnangagwa and his team. It's clearly an endorsement that he should go on with his reformist agenda of opening up, of being friend to none and enemy to all. We hope that the Americans will dismiss the tendency which is coming from some of their senators who never tire to wear the garb of Cecil John Rhodes. They always feel that Zimbabwe belongs to them. Some of them were now talking that we must review our relations with Zimbabwe simply because there's been some negative report. Who runs a perfect election? We are not making any more issue now about what SADC says, because the result is out. We are not making an issue out of it. We would want to take any positives out of that report and proceed. And we hope that the heads of state will also help Zimbabwe come together. You heard President Chisano yesterday, he was being asked, he says, no, we don't do things like that. That's enough. For us, that matter is rested. We are not going to be pursuing any more issue about the Zambian head of the mission. No, we think that the Zimbabwe people have spoken, and their voice is louder than that of the observer, of the observer, the head of the observer mission. But whatever positives we are in his report, we will embrace them and try to move forward. So we hope that the Americans continue, but otherwise, if they persist in their negative attitude, it is only their businesses which tend to lose. They say sanctions are against individuals, but what they've done is that they've made it difficult for American businessmen to come and invest in Zimbabwe. And they've lost opportunity. And they have lost these opportunities in fair market mergers and acquisitions. You may want to know, Zimasco is now owned by the Chinese since 2006. But Zimasco was owned by Union Carbide, an American company. It was bought on the market away from American companies. We have Arcadia. It used to be owned by Australians. The Chinese bought it on the market from Australians. This is a Western nation. Australia is a Western nation. Bikita, you may want to know Bikita Lithium. In 1953, America exploded the first hydrogen bomb. You needed lithium for that bomb. The lithium came from Bikita. It was American-owned Bikita Lithium. The uranium came from the DRC, but the lithium came from Bikita. It was an American company, but because they lost their way in Zimbabwe along the way, they've lost it to Chinese investors. And they didn't lose it because we were giving Chinese freebies. No, their owners were paid fair market value for the disposal of those assets to the Chinese. What am I trying to make? America's attitude of not respecting Zimbabwe as a sovereign state and giving the impression that we will remove the government makes American businessmen wait for the day when the government is removed, then they will get freebies from an on-side compromise government from the CCC. So they are waiting for the day CCC sits on the resources of Zimbabwe. Then they can come and go back to the colonial habit of taking African resources for free. It's not happening anymore because there are other better suitors. The girlfriend has another boyfriend who is hovering in the vicinity. So and the boyfriend has got another equally good-looking girl who is enticing him. So, this is the world of competition. America does not want to accept that Africa can make sovereign decisions about its resources. They want to control those resources by putting puppets in those governments. Then they get it for free. So what happens in the end? They are expecting to have supper of African resources. We have finished the breakfast already with the Chinese, with the Indians, with the breakfast, with Turkish. Whereas they are still waiting for supper. Tato paid their breakfast. And we are not going to stop to wait for America, because this is the attitude of America about this country. One of their former assistant secretaries of state on Africa, his name was Thabo Mbeki, he was asked, why does America always make so much noise about a little country called Zimbabwe in the middle of nowhere, which is landlocked? Thabo Mbeki is Hungarian, but American. He says, don't you know Zimbabwe, its resources? You can go and check this in your Google. So America's attitude towards Zimbabwe is driven by the abundance of resources of Zimbabwe. And America wants to have a free ride on those resources. They don't want to buy them on the market like the Chinese are doing. They don't want to buy them on the market like the Indians are doing. They don't want to buy them on the market like the Indonesians are doing. America wants to put a puppet inside Zimbabwe, then come and negotiate with a puppet so that they get freebies. That's not going to happen. That Africa is gone. And that's why the people are drifting away towards the BRICS because of an American attitude. I'm saying it because it is seen, it is being exhibited in their attitude towards this, in the attitude of their senators in the elections which have just happened in Zimbabwe. We want to review our relations with Zimbabwe because Triple C did not win. Why do you want to decide the sovereign will of the Zimbabwe people when you're an American senator? You've got your elections coming next year. You can vote in your elections and choose who is a Republican or is Democrat. Why do you want to choose who is Triple C or ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe elections when you're an American senator? Please, spare us the nonsense which is coming from America, in American Senate. So thank you so much for your time. We will also entertain questions. Once again, we hope the people of Zimbabwe will remain peaceful. It has been peaceful to date. We also hope that the political actors will act in a responsible manner and use the given constitutional avenues to redress any grievances which they may have. That's the way it should be done. Judges are fair. Yes, and we also, like I say, it gives stress test to our state. That's how you test the strength of your institutions, by taking them before the courts if they've got grievances. That is the best way to go. And we, as ZANU-PF, our president is a lawyer, will abide by the decisions which come from the courts. This much I promise you. Will abide by the decisions which will come from the courts if they decide to go that way. We hope they continue to look at that avenue of redress about any issues which may arise. And it's not their monopoly. Like I said, there may also be players from the ZANU side who may feel that they were not treated properly. They may want to go to the courts. But what I also appeal is to say, let's not continue to look in the rear view mirror. Let's see how we can come together, pull our socks together, and spend our minds on positive aspects of how we can make Zimbabwe prosper by becoming a peaceful, peaceful and law and order nation, where capital is safe, where labor can go to work and convert capital into profit, and where prosperity can be engendered to the general public, and where there can be urban renewal through collective effort. There is a responsibility now for the urban mayors, for the urban mayors, most of them Triple C, to change their attitude about how they run urban areas. Maybe we reach out as two major parties to see how we can collaborate to make sure that Zimbabwe becomes a better country. This is what we would want. This is what we would genuinely wish and fervently wish as ZANU-PF. We can work together. We hope that this spirit can be welcomed and embraced by the opposition so that we move forward together. I thank you.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador Mchangwa, for the time that you gave us. My name is Calvin. I work for the Namibian newspaper in Namibia, as well as Desert Radio. And we also congratulate you for the victory that you have won, and of course the guaranteeing of the second term for President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Although we see that there are misgivings on the side of the opposition, as you have just mentioned. But my question has to do with Zimbabwe and ZANU-PF. What has been missing within ZANU-PF's DNA system for the past decades, all the way from 1980, is the espousing of the idea of succession politics. It's one thing that you dealt with within the party, of course, 2017. And you managed to, for the first time, put in place a president that was none other than Robert Mugabe. Now that His Excellency has been given his second term, are there assurances that are concrete within the ZANU-PF party that the party has positioned itself along a path of succession politics beyond Robert Mugabe? And while the Constitution of Zimbabwe does guarantee the issue of changing of power, but within ZANU-PF itself, are you sure, and are there guarantees that the Constitution will not be massaged in order to extend, once again, the tenure of Emmerson Mnangagwa? So my question is for Ambassador Mchangwa and not you. So if he has got problems with my question, he will actually highlight. But he understands where I'm coming from. So please, can you bear with me? You will have your chances. That's all right. So can you just speak through the
It's
director,
okay.
not through me, and do not interject me because you have
It's
the
okay.
right as I have too.
Please continue.
Continue.
So my question is, are there guarantees, Ambassador, that with this victory that you have attained, succession politics will be a doctrine that will be espoused and practiced within the ZANU-PF? Thank you.
Well, I think the guiding principle there, the supreme document, is the Zimbabwe Constitution. It makes provision for what you are asking for. Already it is specific about the term aspect of presidents, and we are shy of the two-thirds majority, a little bit shy of two-thirds majority, which would require, that's why in the beginning I was at pains to highlight the fact that we are short of the two-thirds majority. We will concentrate more on governance than on probably trying to amend the constitution, because it may be a tall order when you don't have the two-thirds majority. So I would rather that question be answered through the provisions of the Zimbabwe Constitution. Yeah, it addresses those issues. And we were party to that constitution. We wrote it together with MDC before it fissured into triple and morphed and casted and shed off the positive skin of the MDC and became the more cantankerous Triple C. But they were part of that constitution. So we hope that my answer is enough. We have provisions in the Zimbabwe Constitution. Whatever happens in ZANU-PF is private. It's a private citizen. The more important document is the Zimbabwe Constitution. It overrides whatever private citizen or private entities may think or otherwise. But we have also learned from the bitter experience of the Mugabe years. We would not want to be a repeat of usurpation of power through the abuse of executive authority, where we were being turned, a revolutionary party was being converted to a monarchy, a family monarchy. Well, we would not broke that, because it was painful in 2016, 2017. Thank you. I want to come to you because you've got a burning issue.
Ambassador, do you have due respect for your opponent in the TCC, given that you had written him off, but came to get 44% and increased their time?
No, first I want to disabuse the notion that we had written him off. If we had written him off, we would not have campaigned as vigorously as we did. We took him seriously. I want to be very frank with you. Our president scoured the land. He almost now has got, he was showing everywhere that I'm making progress. President, ulcers in his fingers, but Katama ribbons showing progress of what he's doing. He was going to churches, every church gathering, you would see our president there. Every businessman, he was handshaking. He was trying to show the Zimbabwean public that I'm a man at work. I'm not sure whether it was being done by the other candidate. There was no man at work attitude about him. Because sometimes you got to accept that the biggest impact into society is made by a businessman. He sells goods and services which touch a bigger people than a handshake or a greeting which I may have with an individual. So if you want to see a busy leader of a party, try to see which businessman he is comporting with. Because those are the people who have got any bigger impact on society than individuals. Chamisa was nowhere to be seen with businessmen. And unfortunately, that is the history of CCC, MDC. They own towns, airports are in town, businessmen land in towns from the foreign countries. Their first port of call is a local authority to say, and business panjimboi. So a local authority is the most important destination of a businessman, not state house.